What is bodybuilding? Like, what are the judges looking for in particular when it comes to seeing these competitors? Like, what are people trying to be big, or are they trying to be lean, big and lean as possible? What are you aesthetically? What are you guys looking for?
I defer to Bojana on that because she's actually an NPC judge.
Well, every division have different rules, so it depends what we are talking about. If you're talking about bodybuilding or bikini class. So, for example, in my class, it's a figure. Judges, first of all, looking for symmetry and balance between lower body and upper body, left and right side, and then condition must be on point, and muscle size coming to the end, but it's not the least important thing. So it's a fine kind of borderline between woman physique and figure today. Before that was like a very visible, like, this is figure competitor, this is woman physique. But today, muscularity just went up so much in figure division that it's kind of like you don't know, like, this is figure or physique, or that person can compete in both divisions.
Do they still have women's bodybuilding? Because for a minute, I think it disappeared, right?
It's coming back.
Yeah, they took it out of the Olympia. It still existed. There's a group called Wings of Strength. They're also the group who just bought the Olympia. The owner, Jake Wood, loves women's bodybuilding, and he was keeping it alive. Probably if he hadn't kept it alive, it would be completely gone by now. He offered a big cash purse. I think it was $50,000 plus a Jeep. And so he had his little mini Ms. Olympia. And then he bought the Olympia. This guy's got deep pockets.
Why do you think that happened in the first place? Like, were people maybe thinking the women weren't looking feminine enough, or just a lack of interest, or
both? I mean, I personally think, sorry, Jake, but I think women's bodybuilding isn't great for women. I think that there was a long time where women felt like if they did a curl, they would all of a sudden look masculine. And fortunately, with bikini and figure,
I see what you're saying.
We've seen that, these girls are feeling comfortable going to the gym again. Remember the cardio queens of the 90s? Right. They're afraid to lift, and they had flat asses, and nobody liked that. So, once the figure girls and bikini girls started coming out and saying, okay, I can lift and I won't look like a man unless I take tons of steroids. And that's really, at the end of the day, what was happening was the drug abuse was getting higher and higher. And that's the only way a woman can look like that. And so it wasn't good for a woman's health. And it isn't good for, I think, women in general, because they're afraid to do healthy things.
So bodybuilding for women is fine, but following a prescription that a bodybuilder might utilize to gain as much muscle as possible would be the thing that would lead them to look more masculine, right? Like using anabolic steroids, PEDs, and so forth.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of women get bad advice from their bodybuilder boyfriend who says, take what I'm taking. And that's when they're taking androgenic steroids and they look like
take a little bit of this. Go a long way.
D-ball there, a little deck in there.
You gotta shave every other day.
This stuff, but all my laser hair removal isn't working. But you can, beat Bojana's. I'll say it like it is, man. But Bojana is number 2 in the world, and she's a girl, and it can be done, but you have to do it right. Don't have to take those shortcuts, and you have to get the right advice.
At shows, I'm curious about this because it's like when you look at the Arnold Classic, right? It seems that, I don't know, because it's the Arnold Classic, he's looking more like the people that win tend to be more symmetrical. And then in other shows, it's like the same people don't necessarily win. So how much input do certain promoters have on the type of person that wins categories in their shows? Or because they shouldn't really have input on that, right?
We don't.
Okay.
I would say that probably when the bubble gut thing came out, that really started with Arnold, coming out there saying you guys look like Coke bottles or whatever it was. It was, I think we saw the change really happen after that. And I think we kind of mentally connect him with that aesthetic for a lot of reasons. But the same judge who judges, Steve Weinberger's a head judge at the Arnold, he's the head judge at the Olympia, and their entire crew is going to judge the exact same way. And Tyler Mannion and Sandy and so on, they are going to judge the same way, but they will recognize a need for change in the judging standards. And when Arnold came in and said, you know, we need to bring the aesthetic back, I think everybody looked at each other and said, yeah, this is getting out of control and not good for the sport, and it's not healthy. And then you started to see it shift. And I think probably after Arnold came out and said that, then you saw it to begin to change at the Olympia, and then really saw a big change. I think Cedric won that following year, if I recall. And he's got a great taper and a great physique. And I think that's where that came from. But we have absolutely zero say in the judging or what we want to see in the show.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say if I was to say to a judge, I want you to look for this, or I want you to keep an eye on that person or that person, I would probably lose all my shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And with that being said, like, is there right now like a shift going on? Since you said the Olympia has been bought and women's bodybuilding is coming back, is there a shift at all in kind of what's being looked for, or is it generally just staying the same?
It's a constant evolution. And each, now we've got 9 divisions, and each division is evolving. And when a new division, like this year, wellness was added, and wellness is like, it's like bikini with beer. It's like a Brazilian girl, big thick glutes and a big thick quads, but kind of a more bikini-ish top. And so when that happened, they said then the bikini glutes got a little bit smaller, and and then the conditioning kind of got a little harder and figured.
It's like your ass is a little too big for this. You need to go to the next category.
Exactly.
You actually need to go stand over there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so it evolves. And every year we say, you know, figure keeps getting bigger and bigger and more muscular. They look close to women's physique right now. And each year they say, okay, we're going to pull it back. We're going to pull it back. But then in practice, it's not really getting pulled back. Yeah. I think bikini, I would say for the first time, it is getting pulled back, where bikini was getting harder. And the Tahoe show is a good example of that, where Ashley Kaltwasser, who's won the Olympia 3 times, got second place at the Tahoe show because she was a little too hard. So we are seeing them trying to consciously correct that. And our head judge at the Tahoe show is one of the main judges for the Olympia. So he's one of the people who are setting the standard. So they try like hell to have a standard and adjust as needed. It's sometimes hard when you have hundreds of shows each year, and you know, you've got some judging panels who never judge anything except, you know, their 1 or 2 shows each year.
This is I find this like so fascinating, because you know, you hear people say certain things and then they'll go back against what they just said previously. Like, I've heard women for years say, I don't really like a guy to be too big. And then they're like, oh my God, look at The Rock. And they freak out. And you're like, The Rock is 6'5". He's like 270. Like, and he has like hardly any body fat on. Like, do you understand how goddamn big The Rock is? You know, they don't know, you know? And I think a lot of times that's what's happening in these shows, is that there's some people that can pull it off and they can have a ton of muscle on them and they could be shredded and they can look amazing. And then other people, maybe it's too far away from what they were naturally, and they're starting to kind of look awkward, different, right? And maybe it's just not as attractive. And so something throws it off, and you're not sure what it is, but you know that it just doesn't look aesthetically it's hard to say, right? I mean, I just find it fascinating. You know, we can all agree on certain things look pretty good, or we can agree, like if we saw a bunch of different models, we might gravitate towards one in particular where we're like, yeah, that one's kind of the cutest one or the nicest looking one out of those. A flower, like people can agree, like, yeah, that flower looks the nicest, right? But we don't know why. So it's really a really interesting thing to examine and to look at.
You're almost there. The reason you feel those is the release of serotonin, right? Something beautiful comes up, this warm red flower, and you feel serotonin. So 20 girls walk across the stage. They'll all look exactly the same, but 1 or 2 made that serotonin spike. I like that one. That's going to be your first
and maybe
place.
It's something from your own history, or who the hell knows where.
It could be a number of things. You know, it could be their symmetry. It could be something from their past. It could be a color. I mean, tell them what.
It could be the way they're moving, like the way they're walking. They could be walking with more confidence.
What Tamara says when she is doing her presentation.
I'm not going to say that.
I'm so curious.
We have a friend. She's a bikini pro, retired. How do I say this?
Verbatim.
Make the judge fuck you. Yeah. So you go out there and you sell that to them. And she goes, well, what if it's a girl? She wants it too. And there's some truth to that. You go out there and you make them attracted to you. You know, maybe that's on the extreme end, but what is it that's going to get them to spike that serotonin, especially in a division like bikini where they all look awesome. You know, so what is it going to do that makes you stand out? It's going to be something in that presentation, something in your eyes, something just that makes you stand out.